are once again right back in the big saddle in the sky. I don't know what that means, but here we are. Episode 193, kicking off with a scintillating open by myself, Chris Salona, and I'm joined by Ethan Shalloway. I'm really having a rough go of it here, trying to get this episode kicked off. But you know what? It's the equivalent. Your football team goes out there, they go 3 and out on the first drive, but it's the defense's turn to make a big stop. So Ethan, I'm going to kick it over to you. We need a stop to keep this thing on track here.
Yeah, as I like to say, LBL, a lot of ball left. There's a lot of podcasts left to make it work, so no problem. LPL. Yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful Sunday. We're recording this on December 1st. December is here. The long December is upon us.
I got to post that today. You're right. Counting Crows season is back.
Oh, yeah. It's great. I love the Counting Crows. So, yeah, this episode comes out December 2nd. It is the first week in December. So I hope that it finds you well. Everybody's getting ready for the big holiday push for Christmas and New Year's. So pretty exciting. It's the in-between for a lot of people as far as like how much work to get done and how much to just get to the new year. I guess you could say that's the same about us, Chris. How much work do we want to do? Are we just going to get through it?
Yes, exactly. So just to kind of pin back the curtain a little bit, Ethan and I usually have these strategic planning meetings at some point during the week where we try to figure out what exactly we're going to be talking about for next week's episode. And we were thinking about this week and we were trying to get it all set up. And like, I had a topic idea and Ethan, you had one, and you were like, okay, well, like we could just do both. I was like, no, man, like we just do one. So then we have another one to do that's easy during the month of December. So that's what we're going to be doing. But yeah, man, December's tough. It's funny, like with my day job, I was having meetings at the end of November, and a lot of my client meetings are on like a bi-weekly schedule. And we were meeting last week in November, and they're like, yeah, like I'd see we're set to meet on like December 8th. Like we could probably just check in over email. I think we'll be busy, in between the holidays, AKA nobody really wants to do anything of substance at work. And I'm right there with them. I'm looking to cruise to Christmas, coming off of a good Thanksgiving. How was your holiday?
My holiday was good.
Awesome.
Just to touch on that, I saw a tweet that said, like baller power move is to set all the meetings. So then when you don't want to have the meeting, you can just say rescheduling this one for a later date to accommodate scheduling. And if you set the meeting, you can always change it. So yeah, my holiday was has been really good. I've been home for the last 2 weeks, and I was able to do a project with Andy. We saw that to completion. Great. And spent a lot of time with family, a lot of driving around, like everybody's perfectly spaced out, and trying to train alongside. It got cold these last few days, so but I've spent a lot of time in the cold, which is it's kind of nice, because we can be warm with certain we can wear jackets and stuff, and it's just a different just experience the climate a little differently. So I don't know, man, it's been good. It's just been really solid. The family's coming over for one last hang out today, and then I'll probably hit the road and be back in Alabama for a little bit, and then turn around and come back for Christmas. And Thanksgiving, it happened fast. Everybody kind of came. We were the first Thanksgiving on a lot of people's plates, and then they went somewhere else. So people came and went pretty fast. So it wasn't like super eventful. We just had dinner and watched the first game, and then people left. So it's fine. I've had a really enjoyable time here. And we're all good. So how about you, Chris? How are you doing?
That's excellent. I'm good. I had a really good holiday as well. Pretty low key Thanksgiving day. Small gathering, which is nice. It's just super relaxing, just hanging out with the family, spending the whole day, eating all day, that type of thing. And then I was able to spend some time with my friends day before and in the days afterwards, and I was able to work a little bit, rest a little bit, do everything I need to do. All in all, really good. I'm a big fan of this time of year. This upcoming week, I'm gonna put my Christmas tree up in my house. So we'll go cut that sucker down and bring it up here and get it all set up, which is a really one of my favorite things about the holiday season is having my tree in my apartment. But Yeah, dude, things are good. Getting ready for this the stretch run here. We're calling in on the closers to buckle down and come out and finish the job. Or perhaps if your starter is still on the mound, they just have to really drop the hammer down and focus up and get through this last half inning here of
That's us.
2024. Yeah, absolutely.
We are
We're
definitely the
workhorses.
closers.
We're out here for 193 consecutive weeks. Showing no signs of tiring. It's kind of one of those things where the managers in the dugout and the managers looking out at the pitcher on the mound, like trying to make eye contact, and the pitcher just so locked in. They're not even looking at the manager. The manager knows better than to leave that dugout and come out for a mound visit. We're
Yep.
just something. You just gotta let the big hosses throw.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We're going for the complete game. So we got,
Absolutely.
we got 3 complete games under our belt, and we're going for another one.
Absolutely. It's pretty great.
Awesome. So today we are going to do kind of the normal rhythm. We got this day in music. Then we have a little bit about Scott Weiland today. And then we're going to finish up with songs of the week. And so just what we're listening to, it's Monday, Chris. So it's like new music Monday for, we get to talk about whatever we want. So
Yeah, we get to
that
set
comes
the
in forms of
trends for
songs of the
everybody.
week. And I've had a lot of good new music conversations the last month. So, it's fun. I like talking about the new music and what we're listening to. And if it's even just saying, like, I heard of this band for the first time and they're bigger than I thought or whatever,
Yeah.
so that'll be fun. So
Oh yeah.
pretty standard episode coming your way.
Yeah, I would agree. Sometimes standard is nice, especially kicking off this month and recording this, 75 minutes before the 1 p.m. games kick off for NFL Sunday. That is where the focus is today. But in the meantime, very happy to record this podcast and send it out into the world. And we're able to do that thanks to the support that we receive for every individual out there who listens, who's left a review, shared it with a friend, or supported us in a financial way, either purchasing merch, which is available in the show notes. If you need a Christmas gift for your grunge rock loving friend in your life or lover in your life, you can go and grab some Grunge Bible merchandise via the link in the show notes. Or if you'd like to give us a gift this holiday season, you can join our Patreon. So you can help yourself and you can help us. You help yourself because you're helping us continue to do this show, and I presume you're here because you like it. We have a $2, $5, and $10 tier, and the tradition continues where if you join the Patreon, we will reach out to you and get your thoughts on an episode topic that you would like. We'll add it to the queue, and we plan on moving through those as time goes on. We've got one that's on deck that we almost did today. I don't want to I don't want to spill the beans on that, but I can expect over the next couple of weeks we'll be getting to some of the new Patreon supporter topics. So go ahead and join, help us out. And if you join at the $10 level, you receive the privilege of me saying your name every single week until you decide to stop giving us money. So at the time that I'm stating this right now, the following individuals are members of the top tier, and I do get to say their name today because they have not pulled their support. I'd like to thank Black Hole Sean, Kara K, D-Boat, Doug Endy, Down in a Hole Flat Out Fucked, Eddie Vedder got me through my second divorce, Gochu John, Apona, Jade Mercado, Jamie Lynn, Carlene Salona, Keith White, King Buzzo Stole My Hair, Millie, The Michael Dooley Project, Nikki Six, Pile of Punk, Russell, Seattle for Fanboy from New Jersey, Sherry Matthews, Abraham is the cutest basset hound ever, and what the fuck is up, Denny's. So thanks everybody for your support. 'Tis the season to buy somebody a gift, and I'd like to think that we've been working hard enough that we perhaps could receive a gift from you.
That's right. It's gift giving season. And say that's our ploy this week is to send Grunge Bible a gift in a little donation. That's perfect.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So there we have it. 193, man. The march to 200 continues. I meant to discuss this with you off the air, but if you remember, and I'm sure a lot of people remember, we did something pretty special for episode 100 where we ranked the top 100 grunge songs. To this day, it remains our most popular episode release ever, and it's not particularly close. But do we have to do something noteworthy for the 200?
Yeah, let's re-release it.
We'll just re-release it, but we'll release it twice. So
Yeah.
we'll just replay it, so it'll be 200.
Yeah, I mean, that was an undertaking, and I'm actually, very proud of the work and the
Yeah.
ability to make up a list. And it would be fun. I remember it was pretty fun. So I don't know, maybe we can do something for 200, but we'll have to talk about that off
Yeah,
camera.
like
I don't want to make any promises.
listing 200 things is impossible. Like that's for somebody else to do. Yeah, well, the funny thing too is I remember that episode 100. The prep and the research and the lead time on that episode was the equivalent of like 10 normal Grunge Bible podcast episodes. Like that was like 10 weeks worth of prep time. But yeah, we'll figure something out. I had the idea of like, instead of doing like 200, counting down 200 things, we could do like a special 200-minute episode or something where we just lock in for 3 hours and 20 minutes about some topic.
That's kind of a badass idea, actually.
Yeah, that could
We
be
would
good.
need
You just
Drew for
settle
that.
in. Yeah, I think that could be good.
We would need, yeah, that's going to come out like end of January. So
Yeah. Well, we have 7 weeks.
60 minutes times 3.5. Yeah, I like that. It is coming close. And we're actually also, we don't talk about this much, but the page is also closer to 1 million than it's ever been.
Yeah, it is. I've been
821 or something.
Hammering the memes. Yeah, I think we just reached 822,000 followers on Instagram. So that's coming. I think I was doing the math. We'll probably reach 1 million by assuming the trends stay the same. We'll probably reach 1 million sometime in August or September of 2025 at the going rate. And also in February, the page turns 9, which is good because I'm not doing this past 10 years. Like come February 2026, like I'm out of here. I can't be doing Grunge Bible for 10 years.
10 years is 10,000 hours for most activities. If you do it 3 hours a day.
So that just means that I'm an expert.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely reaching expert status.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's do this episode. Let's talk about Scott.
Yeah. Before that, though, we gotta do some This Day in Music. We've got a hard hitting entourage here.
I forgot.
We'll start with some birthdays here. We'll get into the birthday zone for December 2nd. On this day in 1981, Britney Spears, the pop icon, was born. I was a little too young for the Britney Spears phenomenon that occurred in the late 90s, but nonetheless, a very influential and popular pop musician of the era.
Yeah, she came up. She's been on This Day in Music a few times for some of the hits and the Billboard and the charts and whatnot.
Yeah, I think we just had her for the VMAs like a few weeks ago or a couple months ago or something. She won.
So I figured we'd put her on the list. Why not?
Yeah.
Moving up 2 years, in 1983, Aaron Rodgers is born.
The most washed starting quarterback in the NFL right now.
Never seen a decline so bad. I mean, in pro sports like this one. This one is pretty rough. He did tear his Achilles last year, but he's healthy now. So what's his excuse?
Exactly. So like we obviously weren't around for it, but we're getting a lot of parallels, and the pundits are saying that it's eerily reminiscent of Joe Namath when he left the Jets to go to the Rams at the end of his career. He played 1 year with the Rams and only played a few games, I think, before he was benched. But I mean, the Jets, that's the thing, like in sports, there are these just unmitigated disasters, and like they're disasters, but they make for great theater. And they're very entertaining to watch, provided you're not a fan. I know that the Bears have a similar thing going on right now, where they just they fired Matt Eberflus after that Thanksgiving Day disaster in Detroit, and it's just despite these long suffering franchises, the Jets in particular, I think they have the longest playoff drought in North American professional sports. They've not even made a playoff appearance, I think, since 2010 or 2011, and despite their best efforts, it's going to continue another year.
Yeah, it is. Oh man, I'm bringing up the Bears. Yeah, my cousin's a huge Bears fan, and going into that final drive, we're like, all right, like, what new way are the Bears going to find to lose this game? Like, we don't know what it is. Were they going to find something different that we haven't seen before? And sure enough, it was something that I didn't expect. And then what I should have said was, when I was watching the Chiefs the next day, we're going to watch the Chiefs win in a new way we've never seen before.
Yeah, like as much bullshittery as the Bears find ways to lose, the Chiefs end up winning in ways that are equally as bullshittery. I didn't watch that game, but come to find, like I went to the gym at like 4:00. The game was on at 3, and by the time I got out, it was over. But I was like, oh, Chiefs win 19-17. How did they wiggle out of this one this time? And sure enough,
yeah. Oh yeah, you probably thought it was a safety or something.
I know. Well, yeah, that was. I don't even know how the I don't even know who scored or how the scoring went down that game. But what a weird score! It looked like the field was in shitty condition too, just with it.
It came down to the Raiders had the possession with a minute and a half left. Aiden O'Connell makes a great drive. They go down. All they need to do, they're in field goal range, and all they want to get a little bit closer because it was a cold game and tough to kick. And of course, it's like the last play. There's like 20 seconds left, and Aiden O'Connell is like looking around the field, and the center snaps the ball, and it hits him in the chest, and he fumbles it and loses it. And Kansas City recovered it, but also there was a penalty for like an illegal shift because everybody was moving on the offense. Like the center snapped it early.
That's the controversy that I heard. I heard everybody, and I didn't watch it. I don't know the rule, honestly, like what constitutes. But everyone was like, oh, like it was a false start, which is a dead ball foul, which, they would have just kicked the Raiders back 5 yards. But illegal shift evidently gives the opposing team the opportunity to decline it and just go with the result of the play, which obviously the Chiefs would have done. But people were mad online about that. And I'm a Patriots fan, and like when you're the best team in the league, like as the Patriots were for a lot of my coming of age years, like you're obviously aided by calls, whether they're right or not, but every team is, but it's just the team that has the microscope on them that everybody thinks is just constantly getting getting the refs good favor.
Yeah, I mean, people were moving all over. I'm sure that the way they call illegal formation, illegal shift, I'm sure that the play, it's just a matter of which they wanted to call. So, what are you going to do? That's a victory.
What are you going to do? Yeah. How are they every single week? How are they going to slip out of this one? And come to find out, they slip out of it again. Let's move forward to December 2nd, 1991. On this day in history, Charlie Puth was born. Ethan, I don't even know who this is.
He's just a singer who played with, he's like a pop singer is pretty popular. I don't know. I don't know much about him, but I recognize the name. So he's big enough that for name recognition. And he's kind of, I don't even want to, he's kind of like Ed Sheeran, I think.
A lot of people are like Ed Sheeran.
I think, I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but but happy birthday, Charlie. Okay. And then the next one, really special day for a friend of ours. Tomorrow is Eric Lederman's birthday. And we're pretty sure, Eric, if you're listening, we're pretty sure you're turning 48, which is pretty, that's pretty close to 50. But Eric is a longtime friend and big supporter of the page. He's awesome. We went and visited him a few times in New York, and just awesome guy. We're definitely going to have him on in the next 2 months or 3 months, or whatever it takes.
We're due for some. We're due to fire up the Grunge Boys chat again.
Yep. Yeah, we are.
And check in on what's going on in the Lederman zone.
Yeah, he's probably hanging out with his schnauzers and having a great day. So, Eric, if you're listening, happy birthday, man. We're very appreciative of your friendship.
Absolutely. All right, that's it for the birthday zone, and we're gonna just we'll probably rifle through some of these, but we needed to mention on this day in 1939, LaGuardia Airport is open. It opened on this day in 1939. Ethan, we had a bad first encounter with LaGuardia. We went to go see Pearl Jam in Chicago the second time that we saw them, and you were supposed to fly out of LaGuardia. Naturally, LaGuardia himself had other plans, and all it takes is you get burnt by an airport or an airline one time, and they remain on your shit list until the end of time. And is LaGuardia still there for you? It's still on the shit list?
I mean, yeah, it's always on the shit list, but they did a bunch of renovations, and they're all finished, so it looks great, and it flows. It flows a lot better. So you know what? Like, it was kind of. Like, I went there and it was brand new, newly renovated. It took like probably 5 years or something, and like it's state of the art. I mean, it was really nice. So
it feels very equivalent to two people are in a relationship and they decide to go on a break so one of them can work on themselves, and then they actually do the work, and then you get, months go by and you're like, wow, like you're actually like an entirely different person, and let's give this thing another go. Like I feel willing to give LaGuardia another go after all of the work that they've done.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it's probably better than JFK at this point. So
yeah, I never end up flying through JFK. Like I've been through LaGuardia quite a bit the last year, and it's been smooth sailing. Ethan, I want to take this next one, and I feel like we might have some thoughts about this one, and this ties back into a recurring theme that we had on the podcast earlier this year during the summertime, and just being obsessed with the radio and the golden age of disc jockeys and boss radio. On this day in 1957, Al Pretty, who was a DJ at the Portland, Oregon radio station KEX, was fired because he played the Elvis Presley version of White Christmas, which the station had banned previously. So Mr. Pretty defied the rules of the station. And the program manager at KEX had said that the Elvis's version of White Christmas, quote, desecrates the spirit of Christmas and transgresses the composer's intent. The story ended up making national news, and it turned out to be a public publicity boon for the radio station, as Pretty returned triumphantly to the airwaves 2 weeks later after the radio station was inundated with letters supporting the recently and temporarily fired Pretty. And as a part of this great publicity stunt, Al Pretty had the wherewithal to record the phone call from the general manager in which he was fired, and then he played it on the air when he made his return to the airwaves. And I cannot imagine how difficult that must have been in 1957 to record a phone call and then just like have it and play it on the air. But I love this, man. This is what it's all about. And this stunt has been it's been reproduced many times throughout radio history. In fact, like the local sports talk radio station WEEI in Providence, or in Boston rather, the same thing happened. Like they fired one of their late night talk show hosts, and he like locked himself in the studio, and he recorded the phone call where he was fired, but then surprise, he came back a week later. But I mean, this is what it's all about right here. Al Pretty going against the man to play some Elvis.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is we have to fire Drew and do a publicity stunt to
yeah, absolutely,
to boost everything and bring him back. And let's recreate this. This is great. Let's follow in the footsteps of Pretty. That's awesome. That's a good. That is, of course, it's Elvis. Elvis is back.
It's always Elvis. That's a great bit, man. I love that.
It is. That's awesome. So. Moving on to 1973, The Who and their entourage are jailed overnight in Montreal following $6,000 worth of hotel destructions inflicted after a show. This is great. Classic rock star move. Just destroy the hotel and somehow, accrue $6,000 worth of damage. Like, what were they doing in the hotel,
Well, that's the thing. But I mean, like Keith Moon, like in The Who, like all of those guys used to... Like he used to like to light fireworks off in the bathroom, in the toilet of hotel rooms. So
right,
it was probably
plumbing,
and that's the thing. Like I always kind of balk at these these monetary values. Like, oh, what the hell? You're jailing them over $6,000, but I just did the math. Evidently, in 1973, $6,000 is the equivalent to $42,000 in damage today. Which I mean, how could I do $42,000 worth of damage in a hotel room right now? Like if
if you're blowing up the plumbing, if it's infrastructure based,
it's got to be infrastructure based, because it's not beds, it's not televisions, it's not lamps, artwork. It definitely has to do with the infrastructure.
That's just, oh man. And you think that they would stop before like a certain, like, all right, we blew up the toilet, like it'll be done. But no,
they're rock stars, man. That's rock and roll for you.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Couple more here. On this day in 1983, MTV aired the full 14-minute version of Michael Jackson's Thriller music video for the first time. And this is obviously went on to be one of the most influential music videos of all time, and certainly did quite a bit to continue to catapult the status of Michael Jackson as he took off into the 80s and obviously became, one of the top selling recording artists of all time. So big moment for early MTV.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've talked a
14
lot about
minutes.
Elvis recently. The Beatles is always here, the Stones and whatnot. But, Michael Jackson does not come on to This Day in Music and the Grunge World podcast very often. So I thought it was fitting to bring
It's
him
kind
up.
of surprising.
Could be his
That's a
debut.
good
We're not
point.
sure.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. And I mean, because he is an ultra, again, something that,
King of Pop.
he passed away probably 2000.
I think 09.
Yeah, I was going to say '09, like right before. So we were we were in our young teenage years. So we definitely missed the hype. People talk about
a Michael Jackson movie like right after he died, and I went to it with my friends at the time. Like it was like a 7th grade movie outing that we went to.
classic, probably around Christmas time.
Always, man.
So
Providence Play
it's,
Small.
I mean, there's Michael Jackson, like the fame. It's kind of like, Taylor Swift right now. The way her fame is like has everybody in orbit. I feel like that was Michael Jackson was like the most recent person to do something like that.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Last one or maybe two. So in 2002, Oasis singer, back in the news, but Liam Gallagher was arrested and charged with assault after he kung fu kicked a police officer. The incident happened at the Bayreuther Hotel in Munich. The singer lost his 2 front teeth in the brawl, and an Oasis minder was knocked out cold. I love that they decided to call it a kung fu kick.
Those Gallaghers, yeah, as if the style of kick was recorded.
It's like that when he was being detained, he was like, just make sure that like I used my kung fu. Like it's like it was a form of self-defense. So he was trying to get off. Like it was just it was technical. Like it wasn't an assault.
It's like he's in jail and the Mr. Gallagher, you get one phone call and he immediately calls his publicist to let him know that he kung fu kicked him, not that there was a scuffle, not that he kicked him, not that they got into a physical altercation, that he kung fu kicked him.
Yeah,
that's pretty great. That's the Gallaghers for you, man.
It was a stunt. It was another stunt.
Dude, all these things are stunts.
Yeah.
This is a good one here that I'm reading for the first time. On this day in 2003. Darkness singer Justin Hawkins was detained for 2 hours at JFK International Airport in New York after police mistook him for a wanted man who had the same name and the same looks. Police finally agreed to let him go, only after Justin's fiancée and manager Sue Whitehouse produced a tour schedule to prove that he was actually in England on July 4th, 2003, when the alleged crime was committed. Case of mistaken identity, man.
Yeah. Stolen valor. Almost.
These things happen, and it always makes me think back to I think back in like the 1800s, like one, how easy it probably was to get away with crimes because the world of forensics didn't exist. I mean, there were no surveillance cameras. So not only how easy it must have been to get away with stuff, but then like how fucked you truly were if police falsely accused you of something.
Yeah, really. There's
like the jig was up. That was it.
Yeah, your word against them, and there's nothing to the good or the bad. It's either like you're coming out clean or you have nothing to say for it. Yeah, that's a good one. Just classic mix up.
Yeah. Hey, it happens from time to time.
All right, that wraps up This Day in Music in December 2nd. So, but December 3rd, so Tuesday, we will be kind of, mourning the death of Scott Weiland, who passed at age 48 in 2015. Obviously, this comes up each year, as most singers' anniversaries or birthdays and death anniversaries come up. So we're going to take this time to talk a little bit about Scott, because it'll be on the page. You'll see some things, and I'm sure it'll pop up on other Instagram pages. So this is kind of a remembering Scott and talking about a few things that I guess we don't necessarily, we haven't talked about a ton, I guess, letters from family and different kind of viewpoints. But where do you want to start, Chris?
Yeah, well, I mean, Scott Weiland's death is an interesting one, I think, for us personally, because this was the first major death within the grunge '90s rock scene that we were actively entrenched in the fandom of when it happened. So that whole fall, I guess like spring, go back to the spring of 2015, like we started getting into Pearl Jam and Vedder and Lane and a lot of those things. And obviously it leads you to all these different bands. And invariably, as we got into grunge, we started, digging into STP a little bit more. And by that fall, I remember you were in Finland and you were training up in Finland, and we had really, really, really started to get into it, and we would start Grunge Bible, a couple of months later in February of 2016. But this was the first one. I remember, I was just starting to get into STP. I remember at the time I was a big fan of the Unplugged and Big Empty. I think was my favorite STP song at the time, and perhaps maybe still is. But I just remember this one as being the first death that had occurred when I would have considered myself to be a big fan of this type of music. And I remember he passed away on the 3rd, which was a Thursday. But I think it was late at night on the 3rd, so the news didn't break until Friday. And I remember, on that Friday, I was getting ready to go to practice, and we had been chatting about it, and we were affected by it a little bit because we had just started to really get into the music, as you said. And there's just something different, obviously, when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and you're really into this kind of stuff, and it has a different effect on you, I would say. Yeah. But yeah, I just remember thinking about this one and spending a lot of time, in the couple of days afterwards and weeks afterward, listening to his music. And now it was 9 years ago. He was only 48 years old when he passed away. And maybe for, rock and rollers, that's old, but I think in the grand scheme of things, as a father, as somebody with family obligations, somebody with friends, somebody just in the course of their life that's so unbelievably young. And Scott's story is it's a tough one with everything that happened, and his struggles and his failures and his triumphs. And I think he's got to be one of the most complex individuals from the scene, for sure. And I think about that every year, around the anniversary of his passing, especially with the way that he passed, and struggling with his sobriety and struggling with his addiction, and ultimately those addictions and those issues with drugs doing him in.
Yeah, getting into him that year, just like you said, he's one of the most complex individuals. That's why we love him too. Is his music is very complex. I think when you get into Stone Temple Pilots, past what you hear on the radio, you realize how much of an artist he was, and how many different things he liked to play, and different sounds and tempos, and just the way that he would sing. So, like, his music is super complex, and I think that is a good reflection, of his life, and the struggles and his actions, and how they kind of changed him. Because I feel like when you're searching, when I'm in a difficult time, I feel like I'm bouncing around between, you have a lot of different interests, or different, you find whatever, makes you feel comfortable. And that can be change of music, listening to different type of music, and wanting to play different types of music. So I don't think it's very surprising that he was, say, all over the place when it came to performing and what he liked to play, and some of his household struggles, that is.
Yeah, definitely. And we've spent a lot of time, I think, talking about his music, and certainly I think we'll always be affected by it. And the magic, I think, that he created with STP, especially I think those first 3 albums that he did with STP, Core, Purple, and Tiny Music. And, ultimately, everything that Scott struggled with, and everything that ultimately ended up doing him in, had been present in his life for so long, and, had, the environment had been better, maybe had things gone differently. I mean, the arc of STP is different, obviously, if you think of the music, because ultimately, he left the band, and then, he did the Velvet Revolver thing for a while. He did some solo stuff, then he went back to STP, and then they split with him again, and he was doing, some solo stuff, and he was touring with his band called the Wildabouts when he passed away. And it's just, I think with Scott's story, you know, it just, and it does with the other individuals from the scene who struggle with a lot of the same things, but like Scott's story just really makes plain to me just how none of these struggles and none of these addictions and none of these issues ever happen in a vacuum. And they affect your band, they affect your freedom, they affect your wife, they affect your children, they affect your family, your friends, everything. I just kind of think about that one maybe a little bit more so than I do with Lane, because Lane passed away not having had children, and obviously Kurt passed away with his daughter and everything. But this one just kind of speaks to that aspect of the big ripple effect that I think these these struggles and people, the people can have, with the actions that they take.
Yeah, and if you think about it, or look into it a little bit, like Chester Bennington played with Stone Temple Pilots in 2013. So, the band, very few times do a band move on from a star-studded singer while he's still alive. You see that happen when people pass away. They keep the band going, but they didn't just take a break. I mean, they had to replace him, and Chester sat in for a little bit, and I think that's telling, because you don't see it as much. I mean, it still happens, but with the talent, or with the way people talk about Scott, you would think that it would be he's irreplaceable. But the band, they had to move on for the reasons they did, and that's, I don't know, that's kind of telling.
Yeah, it is. And the band, they broke up in 2003, but then when they reformed in 2008, and then Scott ended up having to leave the band in 2013, and then Chester replaced him. That's telling. And with these situations, like with, for example, a spouse or a bandmate or a friend or a father who's got all of these things that they're dealing with, like I think it's an exercise in futility to try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes to understand what's going on. So it's always interesting when you hear the perspectives of people that were in those situations. I think both, like Scott himself, and he wrote a book that undoubtedly he spent a lot of time talking about different things. But I remember at the time in December 2015, so right after he died, we're fledgling like interests in grunge and STP and everything like that. Scott's second wife, with whom he had 2 children, ended up writing a letter that was released in Rolling Stone, and I remember reading it at the time, and it affected me quite a bit. And I haven't read it in a really, really long time until a couple of days ago in preparing to do this episode. But I wanted to go ahead and read it. So this is a letter written by Mary Forsberg, who was married to Scott from 2000 to 2007. And they had 2 children together. And once again, she wrote this for Rolling Stone, and it was released in the aftermath of Scott's death. Mary goes on to write, December 3rd, 2015 is not the day Scott Weiland died. It is the official day the public will use to mourn him, and it was the last day he could be propped up in front of a microphone for the financial benefit or enjoyment of others. The outpouring of condolences and prayers offered to our children, Noah and Lucy, has been overwhelming, appreciated, and even comforting. But the truth is, like so many other kids, they lost their father years ago. What they truly lost on December 3rd was hope. We don't want to downplay Scott's amazing talent, presence, or his ability to light up any stage with brilliant electricity. So many people have been gracious enough to praise his gift. The music is here to stay. But at some point, someone needs to step out and point out that yes, this will happen again, because as a society, we almost encourage it. We read awful show reviews, watch videos of artists falling down, unable to recall their lyrics, streaming on a teleprompter just a few feet away. And then we click add to cart because what actually belongs in a hospital is now considered art. Many of these artists have children with tears in their eyes, expressing panic because their cries go unheard. You might ask, how are we to know? We read that he loved spending time with his children and that he'd been drug-free for years. In reality, what you didn't want to acknowledge was a paranoid man who couldn't remember his own lyrics and who was only photographed with his children a handful of times in 15 years of fatherhood. I've always wanted to share more than anyone was comfortable with. When writing a book years ago, it pained me to sometimes gloss over so much grief and struggle, but I did what I thought was best for Noah and Lucy. I knew that they would one day see and feel everything that I'd been trying to shield them from, and that they'd eventually be brave enough to say, that mess was our father. We loved him, but a deep-rooted mix of love and disappointment made up the majority of our relationship with him. Even after Scott and I split up, I spent countless hours trying to calm his paranoid fits, pushing him into the shower and filling him with coffee, just so that I could drop him into the audience at Noah's talent show or Lucy's musical. Those short encounters were my attempts at giving the kids a feeling of normalcy with their dad, but anything longer would often turn into something scary and uncomfortable for them. Spending so many years immersed in Scott's multiple illnesses led to my own depression. At one point, I was misdiagnosed as bipolar. I feared the same would happen to the children. There were times that Child Protective Services did not allow him to be alone with them. When Scott did move on to another relationship, I hoped it would inspire him to grow. I had often encouraged him to date a, quote, normal girl, a woman who was also a mother, someone who had the energy that I no longer had to love him. Instead, when he remarried, the children were replaced. They were not invited to his wedding. Child support checks often never arrived. Our once sweet Catholic boy refused to watch the kids participate in Christmas Eve plays because he was now an atheist. They have never set foot in his house, and they cannot remember the last time they saw him on a Father's Day. I don't share this with you to cast judgment. I do so because most of you know at least one child in the same shoes. If you do, please acknowledge them and their experience. Offer to accompany them to the father-daughter dance, or teach them to throw a football. Even the bravest girl or boy will refrain from asking for something like that. They may be ashamed or not want to inconvenience you. Just offer, or even insist if you have to. This is the final step in our long goodbye to Scott. Even though I felt we had no other choice, maybe we never should have let him go. Or maybe these last few years of separation were his parting gift to us, the only way he could think to soften what he knew would one day crush us deep into our souls. Over the last few years, I could hear his sadness and confusion when he'd call me late into the night, often crying about his inability to separate himself from negative people and bad choices. I won't say he can rest now, or that he's in a better place. He belongs with his children barbecuing in the backyard and waiting for a Notre Dame game to come on. We are angry and sad about this loss, but we are most devastated that he chose to give up. Noah and Lucy never sought perfection from their dad. They just kept hoping for a little effort. If you're a parent not giving your best effort, all anyone asks is that you try just a little harder and don't give up. Progress, not perfection, is what your children are praying for. Our hope for Scott has died, but there is still hope for others. Let's choose to make this the first time we don't glorify this tragedy with talk of rock and roll and the demons that, by the way, don't have to come with it. Skip the depressing t-shirt with 1967 to 2015 on it. Use the money to take a kid to a ball game or out for ice cream. And once again, that was a letter written by Scott's ex-wife, Mary Forsberg, that appeared in Rolling Stone in December 2015 after Scott passed away. And as I said, I hadn't read that letter in, the 9 years since it was originally published. And it makes plain the complexity of the situation, and it really illuminates just how devastating something like this is. And, we always talk about on the show and on the page, these losses in terms of, what art did we never get from these people? Where would they have gone? What would they have done? But I mean, this is the enormity of an absence of a father from something like this. And, I don't know, like in a weird way, like with what we do with Grunge Bible, like I kind of almost like after reading that, like I feel like a little complicit in that. It's like, let's not choose to glorify, these people with their struggles. And, we have to acknowledge the fact that there is a way for them to work out of this, and they need to to try as hard as they can to do something like that. And just to hear from Scott's ex-wife and the mother of Scott's children, to hear all of those points that she made, it just, it hits really, really hard, man.
It really does. Neither of us are fathers, but we have a loving family and we have really good, memories from when we were younger. And my older brother, he has two daughters. And so I've been able to see him be a father the last 3 years, and he has another one on the way. And the joy and the importance of being there during that time. We've, just in the past couple of years, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about more about my childhood and our childhoods because we're comparing it to theirs and how they're growing up, and we want to give them the similar experiences that we had. And I'm sure you have similar experiences, especially around the holidays, where you're like, I remember when I was young playing football in the front yard or going to a certain, basketball game every year, like the holiday tournament stuff. And those things, like, they really do just stick with people as for their life. And to read this and yes, point out the neglect that the kids have had to face, with Scott being their dad is really heart-wrenching because it's just so important. And I agree with what you're saying, that feel a little complacent, talking about the rock stars and their music only because, famously Lane has the quote, my bad habits aren't my title, my strengths and my talent are my title. And yes, we like to prop that up, but in reality, your character and the person you are to everybody else, and how you are affecting other people, that's the most important thing. And it's not your talents, and that's the hard reality that I think a lot of people don't want to face, because you think if you're doing good and you're producing something that people can enjoy or get, like I said, get entertainment from, yeah, that's all in good. But if you can't be around other people and add value to their life, it makes it a really difficult life to live. So yeah, my condolences to the family, and it's a really tough reality to talk about, but it is what is most important. It's like, it's not really what you do, but how you do it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that these are really, really complex issues, right? I think they're issues that are probably above the intellectual capabilities that I may have, just in the sense of, I think especially whenever somebody's in the public eye and they're struggling with addiction or trauma or illness, any and all of those things, or if they're, just going down a destructive path and those forces are catapulting them further and further down the trail, we always spend a lot of time, and I think particularly when they're in the public eye, preaching, and rightfully so, preaching empathy for those that struggle with a lot of those things. But this letter and rereading it kind of made me reconsider the need to have empathy and compassion for those that are affected by somebody that's struggling with those things. And it's not to say that everybody, if they just try a little bit harder, that there's a way out of those things. But, these are really, really complex issues. And it's just, I don't know. I'm not even really sure how to articulate it. I'm just, thinking back to, like, as you said, like, you growing up, like, having a lot of these experiences with whether it's your father or your mother, or, people that, in my situation, like, fulfilled the role of, like, a father. And, like, I had those memories, and it's always a tragedy when somebody who is supposed to be there, for one reason or another, isn't there to do those things, with their kids.
And I think what you said, directing the empathy, is good. Like, obviously you always want to help the person that is, say, being self-destructive or the one in the pain, but really it's the closest ones to them that you can also show grace to. And like you said, if they're in here, it's like, insist on the father's daughter dance and be there for them. And like, if they're not going to get that from, we're talking specifically about being a fathers, but if they're not going to get that from a father, and you see that, you can step in and be that for them at the right time. And, that goes a long way, as you were saying. Like there's plenty of, I think everybody has plenty of fond memories of people that they looked up to when they were younger. And it could be a teacher, it could be a coach. Like there's people that have lasting impacts. I was talking to somebody Thanksgiving Eve, and like, yeah, I was really fond of my homeroom teachers when I was younger. And there's not a lot of male homeroom teachers that affect, there's just, it's a job that's predominantly women who are teaching, and that's great. But then it's also like the male figure really stands out because there are a ton of kids that don't have fathers in this life, as well as mothers. But like there's definitely there's a need for that figure in kids' lives.
Yeah, and like growing up for me, like my father wasn't around as much as I certainly would have hoped that he was, for reasons far and away different from Scott and his family. But yeah, you just think back to, like, for me at least, like how lucky I was to like have no shortage of uncles or coaches or friends' fathers that would step in and like, hey, like, we're gonna go to the Red Sox game. Like, you want to come with the family? Like, we'll, or like, hey, like, let's go hit balls, or let's go to the movies, or whatever. Like, it's just, it's so important to have those relationships, and I think it's always a tragedy anytime somebody isn't able to have those types of relationships with, come hell or high water, the one person on this planet, the people that brought you into this earth, when they're not around. It's just, it always really, really stinks. And this just thinking about this letter and the impact that Scott's death had on Scott's family, it just really makes me consider and deeply consider just the impact that these losses can have. And it just kind of makes me consider how I guess intentional or not, we tend to glorify people that, end up hurting a lot of other people, through their struggles. And it's just, it's so complex. And it's just one of those things where, it's complex. So I think the answer is to choose to care, and it's to choose to care for everybody involved, and to, be of assistance to anybody that you can. Both the people that could be going through things and the people that are going through things because that person is going through things. I think we can always do more to help people, whether they're, being affected by something or whether they're affecting other people. And this just kind of really made plain the need to do that, I think, in all of our lives.
Yeah. I think that celebrity stories and the way people follow celebrities is it's very headline based, and yeah, this stuff, like, she wanted to share before but didn't think people would be comfortable with it. And people, it's like, celebrities want to be treated as normal people. They say that all the time. And his wife at the time felt like she couldn't be real and talk about what was actually going on. Or people, they don't want to hear it. I guess they want to hear, or they want the headlines. And I think that it can get swept under. So that's the hard part about being in the spotlight. And I'm sure it made it difficult for him to be a father and be around all the time. But he has to take ownership of that. And sadly, it's taken to afterwards for this letter to come out. And it is really a well written letter, and I think that it expressed everything that she had been feeling and thinking. And I wonder how the kids are doing now and how everything is going, because it's been a long time. It's been 9 years, and people hopefully have stepped up and made it a little bit better environment to kind of live on. And it's really complex. It's really, I'm glad that you chose to read it. Lengthy, I guess, but also very well written. So I think that is a very good use of airspace here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with the holidays. It seems like everybody's close to family, and this is a good time to, like I said, ask people, insist on going to the movies with somebody, and just spending time with them. And although like maybe you don't want to overstep your boundaries of asking them, hey, can I take, this person? Okay, we all go, but like, they probably don't have the courage to ask, like they said, or she said in the letter. And I think that's important to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I'm glad that we chose to at least share this, share that letter. If you've not heard it before, if it's been, as it was for me, a long time since you've read it. And I think even more so than just listening to us talk about it, just think about what was written in there and what was said, and the way it makes everybody feel. I think, especially as music fans, I think it's important to consider. I think that all of us were people first, and then we're occupations second. And there's a pretty big gap between the two. And you have an obligation to be the person that the people in your life need you to be, before you are what your occupation is. And I think in today's society, it's always good to be reminded of that. So that certainly reminded me of that. Yeah, it's just a sad day for everybody involved, obviously, here as we're on the 9th anniversary of his death.
Yeah. If you have any other thoughts, we could share them, but I think that pretty much sums up, not to be a downer, obviously, on the day, but it is a good time of year to reflect on all this stuff and reflect on how you're kind of impacting others during this. And you said this is a tough time of year for a lot of people, because there's a lot of families that are getting together and having a good time, and you may not have that opportunity. So this is a good time to reach out and be there for other people. And the simplest ways is sometimes the best way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you one follow-up, you had said, just kind of like how the children are doing now. So Noah, Scott's son, actually was in a band in 2020, 2021 or so. I think it was called Suspect 208. And the band broke up because Noah himself was struggling with drugs around that time, and the band ceased to be. I haven't read it. I just found a December 2023 Rolling Stone interview with Noah. And the byline says, Scott Weiland's son is making gritty alternative pop and finally forgiving his father. Noah Weiland, who records Justin Bieber-style pop songs, says he's learned to live without the opioids that brought him dangerously close to following his rock star father's tragic path. I'm looking forward to reading this after this podcast ends, yeah. But you just hope that, I think that the greatest gift that any father can give to their son is to give them a better path forward. And, all the best to Noah and Lucy, that they're able to do that and, chart a better, stronger tomorrow for themselves and for their families.
All right. So the final thing for this episode is we're going to talk about some new music or songs of the week. Chris, I can go first. Like I said, I've been talking a lot about music around these parts, and
do it.
I definitely, this isn't going to be my song of the week or anything, but I've been listening to a lot of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard these days.
Of course you have been.
Oh yeah, and they've been brought up a few times on the page. I remember first finding them and just being obviously excited about the name, but they're from Australia, and they put on just the energy and the way that they rip and shred and play is just really unmatched. And they moved up really high on my list of bands to see. And it's one of those things that I don't think you can miss them if they come by. I think we gotta see them. And I was looking, and there was a friend's dad was showing me. He went to a concert, and he was showing me like all the stuff that they did while playing. Like the pit had a row pit where everybody gets down and like rows. Like literally just like act like they're rowing a boat, and like you can imagine like a whole pit like seated, and it's just hilarious and awesome. But the other band that I was kind of put on to yesterday, and I listened to them a little bit, and we'll see, the verdict is still out, but they're very intriguing, as we like to say. The band is called Sleep Token, and they are a British metal band that formed in 2016 in London, and the group, they wear masks, so it's very Slipknot-esque.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah, and so they're anonymous. They're a mass collective led by frontman using the moniker Vessel, and they're categorized as alternative metal, post rock, prog rock, indie pop, and just like really they're pretty heavy. But then they have like he has a pretty good voice, so it's like a deep kind of choir voice, and um, it's really interesting. I've never heard of them. It just got brought up, and they have like 4.5 million listeners on Spotify, so they're pretty big on there. And um, I'm just always amazed that there's just big bands that you may have never heard of that are really great. So I was taking a listen to some of their music, and yeah, they're just really interesting. And I find myself like, I don't know exactly if I don't know, I'm going to put them in my heavy rotation, but they're
Right.
really, I got to watch some live stuff because
Oh yeah. You have
I
to.
was just listening as I was doing a workout in the cold, and they were kind of perfect.
Hmm.
So the top song is called "The Summoning," and that's where I started. So I'll put that on the list. But they're pretty interesting. So just
Hell
a few
yeah.
bands to keep an eye out on. You never know.
Very intriguing stuff.
Right? Exactly.
Nice. That's good stuff.
How about you, Chris?
You know, I think I'm going to stay right in the same zone that I was last week. It has been a big week for the doctor, Dr. John. My song of the week is going to be "Such a Night" by Dr. John.
Yes.
It was performed in the last waltz, and this most of this past week I've been doing that thing like you go to Spotify and you can like click on a song and just click like go to radio,
Oh yeah.
and it's like Spotify will just create a mix based
Station.
off of that song. So for the for the entire week, I've had Such a Night radio teed up on my phone, and
That's amazing.
I've been hammering it, dude. You get Dr. John, you get some blues in there, you get some '70s stuff. But yeah, with respects to the doctor, I'm still going to be having the doctor make a few more house calls before this year is up.
I love it.
And that's going to be my song of the week. Looking forward, I think probably next week we'll have Spotify Wrapped, so we can talk about that on the show next week, which will be fun. But probably too late for Dr. John to make an appearance, but we'll have to start his 2025 campaign in earnest.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where he shows up on the list next year. Let's bring back the doctor. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you, Drew McFadden, our producer. He's going to put in some hard work on this episode later. And thank you all
Absolutely.
to all the listeners out there for staying with us. I hope everybody has a great week. And yeah, put up your Christmas tree, start listening to some Christmas music, and we'll see you same time, same place for next week's episode.
You bet. Thanks everyone. Rock and roll.
See you guys.
Hansi.